Clara Whitfield's knees hit the wooden platform hard. Blood seeped through her torn stockings as the auctioneer's gavel slammed down. Sold to Ezra Blackwood for $40. $40. That's what her life was worth. She'd traveled 1,800 miles believing she'd find a husband. Instead, she found chains. But fate wasn't done with her yet. A voice cut through the crowd, rough, desperate, belonging to a man she'd never seen. "I'll double it. $80. She comes with me." Follow this story to the very end and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see just how far Clara's journey reaches. The cage wagon stank of sweat and fear. Clara pressed her forehead against the iron bars, counting the miles by the ache in her bones. 3 weeks since Boston. 3 weeks since she'd signed Cornelius Finch's contract with trembling hands. 3 weeks since she'd believed the lie. "Clara." Sarah's voice came from behind her, thin as paper. "Clara, I can see buildings. We're almost there." "I know. Maybe it won't be so bad. Maybe the men will be kind. My letter said—" "There are no letters, Sarah." Clara didn't turn around. "There never were." Silence. Then a sob. Clara closed her eyes. She shouldn't have said it. The girl was 19, barely more than a child. Let her have hope for a few more minutes. Let her believe in bankers and courtship and happy endings. But Clara was 28. She'd stopped believing in happy endings the day they buried her father in a pauper's grave. The wagon lurched to a stop. "Ladies." Cornelius Finch appeared at the door, his smile bright as a new penny. "Welcome to Sweetwater Springs. Your new lives begin today." He unlocked the cage. One by one, the women stumbled out into the harsh Wyoming sun. Clara counted them. 6 total. 6 women who'd answered advertisements for mail-order brides. 6 women who'd trusted a stranger's promise. 6 fools. "Form a line, please." Finch gestured toward a raised platform at the center of town. "Single file. Back straight. Remember, first impressions matter." Clara's legs felt like water, but she forced them to move. She took her place in line behind Sarah, ahead of a widow from Chicago named Margaret. The boards creaked beneath her feet. The sun beat down on her head. And everywhere men watched. They lined the streets. They leaned against doorframes. They stood on porches with arms crossed and eyes hungry. Miners with coal-black hands. Cowboys with leather faces. Merchants in dusty suits. All waiting, all appraising. "Fresh meat," someone muttered. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Clara's hands curled into fists. She thought about her father's shop in Boston, the smell of fabric and thread. The way his fingers flew over the sewing machine, creating beauty from nothing. He'd taught her everything: how to cut, how to stitch, how to spot quality from across a room. He'd never taught her how to survive being sold like livestock. "Mr. Finch." Clara's voice cut through the murmur. "You told us we would meet respectable gentlemen. You said there would be courtship, introductions, time to know each other." Finch turned his smile unchanged. "And so there will be, Miss Whitfield. These gentlemen are here to introduce themselves, to select companions for their homes. It's quite civilized, I assure you." "Then why are we standing on an auction block?" The crowd went quiet. Finch's smile flickered, just for a moment. Then it returned brighter than before. "You have spirit. That's good." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Spirit fetches a higher price, but too much spirit." He shook his head slowly. "That can be corrected. Do you understand me, Miss Whitfield?" Clara understood. She said nothing. Finch patted her cheek like she was a dog that had learned its place. "Good girl." He climbed the platform steps and spread his arms wide. "Gentlemen of Sweetwater Springs, as promised, I've brought you the finest selection of Eastern ladies, educated, refined, ready for honest work and honest living. Each woman comes with a 5-year labor contract, legally binding, approved by the territorial authority, room board, and modest wages in exchange for domestic service. "What kind of domestic service?" someone shouted. More laughter, cruder this time. Clara looked at Sarah. The girl was shaking. Tears streamed down her face, cutting tracks through the dust on her cheeks. "Be strong," Clara whispered. "Don't let them see you break." "I can't." "You can. Look at me." Clara grabbed Sarah's hand and squeezed hard. "Whatever happens, you survive. You hear me? You survive." Sarah nodded, but her eyes were empty. "Our first offering." Finch pulled a young woman forward, barely 17, Clara guessed. "Miss Elizabeth Monroe, recently of St. Louis, trained in household duties, strong constitution." The bidding began. $5. $7. $10 for the girl. $12. Clara watched Elizabeth's face. The girl stood rigid, chin-lifted, eyes fixed on some point in the distance. Brave. So brave. But her hands trembled at her sides. "Sold to Mr. Peterson for $15. A man with a gray beard and yellow teeth climbed the platform. He grabbed Elizabeth's arm and pulled her down the steps. She didn't resist, didn't make a sound, just walked away toward whatever waited for her. Clara felt something crack inside her chest. Next, Miss Sarah Pemberton, 19 years of age, trained as a seamstress, good with children. "No." Sarah's whisper was barely audible. "No, please." Finch's men pushed her forward. Clara lunged. "Don't touch her." A hand caught her arm, yanked her back. She hit the platform hard, the breath exploding from her lungs. "Careful, Miss Whitfield." One of Finch's men loomed over her. "Wouldn't want you damaged before your turn." Clara struggled to her knees, watched helplessly as Sarah was displayed to the crowd. $5. $8. $10. She's young, trainable. 15. The bidding climbed. Sarah stood, frozen tears streaming, shoulders hunched. $20. A new voice, deep, cold, commanding. Clara turned toward the sound. A man stood at the front of the crowd. Expensive coat, silver-headed cane, face like granite carved by a cruel sculptor. Two men flanked him, hired muscle clearly. Their hands rested on their gun belts. $20, the man repeated. "That's my final offer." Finch's smile widened. "Sold to Mr. Ezra Blackwood." Sarah screamed. The sound cut through the air like a blade, raw, primal. The scream of an animal caught in a trap. Blackwood's men climbed the platform. They grabbed Sarah's arms, one on each side, and lifted her bodily off her feet. "No, please, someone help me. Please." Clara scrambled up. "Let her go." A fist caught her in the stomach. She doubled over, gasping. "Clara." Sarah's voice grew distant. "Clara, help me, please, please." The screaming continued as they dragged her away, down the platform steps, through the crowd, around a corner, then silence. Clara knelt on the platform, arms wrapped around her stomach, fighting for breath. The crowd watched with mild interest. A few men chuckled, most looked bored. Just another auction day in Sweetwater Springs. 2 more women were sold. The widow Margaret went to the general store owner. A mother clutching an infant went to a rancher who claimed he needed a housekeeper. Then only Clara remained. Finch pulled her to her feet. "Our final offering, gentlemen." His voice rang out across the square. "Miss Clara Marie Whitfield, 28 years of age, educated in Boston, trained in bookkeeping, seamstress work, and household management. A true prize for any discerning buyer." Clara stood straight. She looked at the crowd, at the hungry eyes and the cruel smiles, and she felt something shift inside her. Not fear. Rage. "Let's start the bidding at $20, Finch announced. Silence. $15 then? Nothing. "She's old," someone called out. "Dried up." Look at that jaw, another added. Stubborn as a mule. That mouth on her'll be nothing but trouble. Finch's smile strained. $10. Surely someone will offer $10. Clara looked at Ezra Blackwood. He stood with his arms crossed, watching her with the same expression a man might wear while examining a lame horse. $5, Blackwood said. That's what she's worth. Mr. Blackwood, surely. $5. Blackwood's voice hardened. She's too old for the mines, too proud for the house, but I can find uses for her. $5 or she stays with you. Clara met his eyes. You couldn't afford me, she said quietly, if you owned every dollar in Wyoming. Blackwood's face went dark. The crowd stirred. Men exchanged glances. Someone laughed nervously. You'll regret that, Blackwood said softly. I promise you'll regret that. Sold. Finch's voice cracked with desperation. Sold to Ezra Blackwood for $5.40. The word fell like a stone into still water. Everyone turned. A man was pushing through the crowd, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing the clothes of a working rancher, worn boots, faded shirt hat, pulled low. His face was weathered by sun and wind, carved with lines that spoke of hard years. A scar ran down his left forearm. He walked with a slight limp, but his eyes blue as summer sky burned with something Clara couldn't name. I said $40. His voice was rough as unfinished wood. For the woman. Blackwood spun around. Harrington, what do you think you're doing? Bidding, same as you. You don't have $40. Everyone knows your ranch is mortgaged to the bank. What I have is my concern. The man Harrington climbed the platform steps. He was taller up close, broader. Something in his bearing spoke of military training. $40, Finch. That's my offer. Finch looked between the two men. His eyes calculated profit and risk with the speed of a card shark. The bid stands at $5 from Mr. Blackwood. You hadn't dropped the gavel. Harrington's voice was iron. Higher bid takes precedence. Your rules, Finch, not mine. The crowd pressed closer. Clara could feel the tension crackling in the air like lightning before a storm. 50, Blackwood snapped. 60, 70, 80. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was entertainment now, a showdown between the richest man in the territory and a struggling rancher with nothing to lose. $100. Blackwood's voice shook with rage. $100 and that's final. Harrington's jaw tightened. Clara saw his hands clench, saw the defeat settling into his shoulders like a physical weight. He didn't have it. Of course he didn't. Sold, Finch began to Ezra Blackwood for $100, the ranch. The word stopped everything. What? Finch's voice came out strangled. I said the ranch. Harrington pulled a folded paper from inside his coat. The deed, 1,200 acres. Cabin barn, 50 head of cattle, all equipment. Worth more than anything Blackwood's offering. You're insane. Blackwood stepped forward, his face purple. That land is worthless. The bank practically owns it already. Then you've got nothing to worry about. Harrington held out the deed to Finch. Take it. She comes with me. Clara couldn't breathe. This man, this stranger, was offering everything he had. His land, his livelihood, his future. For a woman he'd never met. A woman no one else wanted. Why, Mr. Harrington. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. What are you doing? He looked at her then. Really looked at her. And in his eyes she saw something that made her heart stutter. Pain, old and deep. Desperation, raw and real. And underneath it all, hope. Fragile as a candle flame in a windstorm. I need help, he said quietly. Too quietly for anyone else to hear. My nephew, he's hurt. He's dying inside and I can't reach him. I've tried everything. Nothing works. And you think I can help? I think you're the only person in this town who looked Blackwood in the eye and told him he couldn't afford you. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. My nephew needs someone like that. Someone who doesn't break. Finch snatched the deed from Harrington's hand. Sold to Thomas Harrington for trade value equivalent to property transfer. Blackwood's roar of rage echoed off the buildings. This isn't legal. I'll have the sheriff. It's legal. Finch was already stuffing the deed into his coat. Contract law, Mr. Blackwood. First acceptable bid wins. The bid was accepted. This isn't over, Harrington. Blackwood's voice dropped to something low and dangerous. You hear me? This isn't over. I'll take that ranch. I'll take everything you have. And when you're broken and begging in the street, I'll take her too. You're welcome to try. Harrington took Clara's arm gently, she noted. Not like a captor. Like a man helping a lady down from a carriage. Ma'am, if you'll come with me. Clara let him guide her off the platform. The crowd parted before them, silent staring. Whispers followed in their wake. Fool gave up his whole ranch. For what, a spinster from back east? Blackwood'll destroy him, mark my words, before the month's out. They walked past the saloon, past the general store with its empty windows, past the women who watched from doorways with pity in their eyes. Where are we going? Clara asked. My wagon's at the edge of town. My nephew's waiting. Your nephew, the one who's hurt. His name's Luke. Harrington's voice tightened. He's 11 years old. 3 weeks ago, a horse kicked him, broke his leg in 2 places. Doc says he might never walk right again. I'm not a doctor, Mr. Harrington. I don't need a doctor. I need someone who can reach him. He stopped walking and turned to face her. His father, my brother, was killed 6 months ago. Bank robbery in Kansas. Luke saw it happen, saw the whole thing. He hasn't been the same since. Clara felt something twist in her chest. And his mother? Left when he was 3, never looked back. They stood in silence for a moment. The wind picked up, carrying dust and the smell of coming rain. You gave up your ranch, Clara said slowly, for a woman to take care of a boy. I gave up a piece of land for a chance to save my nephew's life. Harrington's eyes held hers. There's a difference. What happens when he's healed, when he doesn't need me anymore? You leave, if you want. Just like that. Just like that. I'll give you money for passage anywhere you want to go. But I'm asking you. His voice cracked. I'm begging you to try first. That's all. Just try. Clara thought about Sarah, about her screams fading into silence, about Elizabeth's empty eyes, about all the women who would never get a choice. She was being offered a choice. It might be a trap. It might be a lie. It might be worse than anything Blackwood had planned. But it might not. Show me, she said. Show me the boy. They reached the wagon at the edge of town. An old buckboard weathered by years of sun and wind. 2 tired horses stood in the traces, their heads hanging low. And in the back, propped against a pile of blankets, sat a boy. He was small for 11, thin. His right leg was wrapped in a splint that looked hastily made. His face was pale with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. His sandy hair was tangled and dirty. But it was his eyes that stopped Clara cold. Hazel. Wary. Old. The eyes of someone who had seen too much, lost too much, trusted too much. The eyes of someone waiting to be abandoned again. Luke. Harrington's voice softened. This is Miss Whitfield. She's coming to stay with us for a while. The boy's gaze moved to Clara, assessed her, dismissed her. Uncle Tom bought you. His voice was flat. Like a horse. Luke. It's true, isn't it? I saw the auction. I saw him give away the ranch. The boy's voice sharpened. Our ranch. For her. Clara stepped forward, stopped at the edge of the wagon. Your uncle traded for me, she said calmly. There's a difference. What difference? A horse doesn't choose where it goes. I do. I'm choosing to come with you. Why? Luke's voice cracked. Nobody chooses this. This place is dying. Blackwood owns everything. We can barely keep the cattle fed. Why would anyone choose to come here? Clara looked at the boy, at his broken leg and his broken eyes, at the anger that barely masked the fear underneath. She thought about her father's shop, about the day the creditors came, about standing in an empty room, surrounded by the ghosts of everything she'd lost. Because I know what it's like, she said quietly, to lose everything, to have nothing left, to think there's no reason to keep going. Luke's face flickered, just for a moment. And, he demanded, what did you do? I kept going anyway. Clara met his eyes. Because sometimes, that's all you can do. Keep going. Keep surviving. Until something changes. Nothing ever changes. Then make it change. They stared at each other. The wind blew. The horses shifted in their traces. You're lying, Luke said finally. Everyone lies. Everyone leaves. You'll leave too. Maybe. Clara didn't look away. But I'm here now. That's something. She climbed into the wagon, settled onto the bench across from the boy, careful not to jostle his injured leg. He watched her every movement with suspicious eyes. Harrington took the driver's seat, clicked his tongue at the horses. The wagon lurched forward. They rode in silence through the dying town, past the saloon where men gathered to drink away their sorrows, past the church with its broken steeple, past the sheriff's office where a deputy sat whittling deliberately, not watching them leave. The road climbed into the hills. The town fell away behind them. Clara looked back once. Ezra Blackwood stood on the porch of the largest building on the main street. His silver-headed cane gleamed in the afternoon sun. Even at this distance, she could feel his eyes on her. Even at this distance, she could see his smile. "Mr. Harrington," she said quietly. Tom. Tom, that man Blackwood. What did you mean when you said he could take everything? Tom's shoulders tensed. For a long moment, he said nothing. The ranch is mortgaged, he said finally. I'm 3 months behind on payments. Blackwood owns the bank. He could call in the loan anytime he wants. Then why hasn't he? Because he wants to watch me suffer first. Tom's voice was bitter. He's been trying to buy my land for years. I wouldn't sell. This is his revenge. And now you've given the deed to Finch. It was already worthless. Tom looked back at her, his eyes hard. Blackwood would have taken it by spring. At least this way I got something for it. You got me. I got a chance. He turned back to the road. That's more than I had this morning. The wagon creaked along the rutted track. The sun began its slow descent toward the mountains. Purple shadows crept across the valley floor. Luke hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. He sat with his arms wrapped around himself, staring at nothing. Clara watched him from the corner of her eye. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "Your leg?" He didn't answer. "The splint looks uncomfortable. When we get to the ranch, I could adjust it. Make it sit better." "Nothing. I'm good with my hands. My father was a tailor. He taught me about bodies, how they move, how they heal." Luke's head turned slightly, almost imperceptibly. "Your father taught you about bones." His voice dripped with skepticism. "He taught me about fabric, about how it has to lay just right against the skin, about pressure and support and movement." Clara shrugged. "A broken leg isn't that different. It needs support. It needs room to heal, and it needs to be treated gently. Doc Morrison already said it. Doc Morrison did good work. I'm talking about comfort. Living with a splint for weeks is hard. I might be able to make it easier." Luke was quiet for a long moment. "Why do you care?" It was the first real question he'd asked, the first crack in his armor. Clara considered her answer carefully. "Because someone should," she said finally. "Because you're hurt, and you're scared, and you're pretending you're neither. because I know exactly how that feels." Luke's face twitched, then he turned away. "We'll see," he muttered. It wasn't acceptance. It wasn't trust. But it was something. The sun touched the mountains. The sky turned gold and rose and purple. The wagon climbed higher into the hills, leaving the valley and the dying town and Ezra Blackwood behind. But not forgotten. Never forgotten. Clara could still feel his eyes, could still see his smile. "This isn't over," he'd said, and Clara believed him. The wagon crested the final hill just as the last light bled from the sky. Clara saw the ranch below, small, weathered. A cabin that had seen better days, a barn with a sagging roof, a corral where a handful of horses stood watching their approach. Not much, but real. Tom pulled the wagon to a stop and sat motionless for a moment, his hands tight on the reins. "It ain't much," he said quietly. "I know that. It's a home." Clara climbed down from the wagon. "That's more than I had this morning." She turned to help Luke, but the boy jerked away from her outstretched hand. "I don't need help." "Your leg is broken." "I can manage." He tried to swing himself over the wagon's edge. His face went white with pain. A strangled sound escaped his throat, but he bit it back, refusing to cry out. Clara watched him struggle. Every instinct screamed at her to help to catch him to ease his suffering. But something told her that would be the worst thing she could do. This boy needed to fight. Needed to prove something to himself. So she waited. Tom moved toward his nephew, but Clara caught his arm. "Let him," she said softly. "He'll hurt himself." "He's already hurt. Let him feel strong." Tom hesitated. His whole body strained toward the boy, desperate to help, desperate to fix what couldn't be fixed. But he stayed. Luke made it to the ground. His good leg buckled. He caught himself on the wagon wheel, breathing hard sweat streaming down his face. "See?" His voice shook. "Told you I could manage." "You did." Clara kept her voice neutral. "Think you can make it to the house?" Luke's jaw tightened. He looked at the cabin. 20 yards, maybe. 20 yards of uneven ground in the gathering dark. "Course I can." He took one step, then another. His injured leg dragged behind him, the splint scraping against the dirt. Each movement cost him. Clara could see it in the set of his shoulders, the clench of his fists. But he kept going. Tom grabbed Clara's arm. "This is cruel," he hissed. "He's in pain. He's been in pain for months. Physical pain he can handle. It's the other kind that's killing him." She watched the boy struggle forward. He needs to know he's not helpless. That he can still do things, still matter. "You learned that from your father, the tailor." "I learned that from life, Mr. Harrington." Luke made it to the porch. He collapsed against the railing, gasping, trembling, but alive with something that hadn't been there before: pride. "I did it," he breathed. "Uncle Tom, I did it." "You did, son." Tom's voice was rough. "You sure did." Clara climbed the porch steps and crouched beside the boy. "That was impressive," she said. "But next time, let someone help you. Being strong doesn't mean doing everything alone." Luke's eyes narrowed. "That don't make sense." "Most true things don't." She straightened up. "Now let's get you inside. I want to look at that leg before it swells any worse." The cabin was small but clean. One main room with a stone fireplace, a rough-hewn table, 2 chairs, a kitchen area in one corner, 2 doors leading to what Clara assumed were bedrooms. Tom lit a lamp. The warm glow pushed back the shadows, revealing walls decorated with military commendations, and a single photograph, a young woman with dark hair and gentle eyes. Clara looked away quickly. "Put him on the table," she said. "I need light to examine the leg." Tom lifted Luke, the boy protested but weakly, and laid him on the wooden surface. Clara rolled up her sleeves and bent to examine the splint. "Who set this? Doc Morrison, 3 weeks ago." "He did good work." Clara's fingers probed gently around the edges of the wrapping. But it's too tight here. See how the skin is red? That's pressure. Left alone, it could cause problems. What kind of problems? The kind that turn a broken leg into a lost leg. Tom went pale. Can you fix it? I can adjust it, make him more comfortable, but I'll need supplies. Clean cloth, willow bark if you have it, hot water. Tom moved, immediately grateful for something to do. Clara watched him go, then turned her attention back to Luke. The boy was watching her with those old, wary eyes. You're not a doctor, he said. No. Then how do you know this stuff? Clara began carefully unwrapping the outer layer of the splint. My father broke his hand once. Caught it in a sewing machine. We couldn't afford a doctor, so my mother said it herself. She taught me what she knew. She paused. Hold still. This might hurt. I don't care about pain. I know you don't. That's what worries me. She adjusted the padding around his ankle, redistributing the pressure. Luke sucked in a breath but didn't cry out. Why does that worry you? He asked through clenched teeth. Because pain is a message. It tells us something's wrong. People who ignore it too long, she shook her head. They stop feeling anything at all. Maybe that's better. It's not. Clara met his eyes. Trust me. Tom returned with the supplies. Clara worked in silence, rewrapping the leg with clean cloth, creating a better support structure. Her hands moved with the confidence of someone who had done this before, not with broken bones, but with fabric and thread, and the knowledge that everything given time and care could be mended. When she finished, Luke's face had relaxed slightly. The constant grimace of pain had eased. Better? She asked. He nodded grudgingly. Good. Now you need to sleep. Real sleep, not whatever you've been doing. I sleep fine. Liar. Clara helped him sit up. But that's a conversation for another day. Which room is yours? Tom carried Luke to the smaller bedroom. Clara stood in the doorway watching as he settled the boy onto a narrow bed, tucking a worn quilt around his thin shoulders. Stay with me. Luke's voice was small suddenly, young. Just until I fall asleep. Of course. Tom sat on the edge of the bed. I'm not going anywhere. Clara withdrew quietly, giving them privacy. She stood by the fireplace, warming her hands, studying the photograph on the wall. The woman in the picture smiled at her. Gentle, kind, gone. Her name was Margaret. Clara turned. Tom stood in the bedroom doorway, his face half in shadow. She died 2 years ago. Childbirth. The baby didn't survive either. I'm sorry. Me too. He crossed to the fireplace and stood beside her. I almost drank myself to death after. Would have probably if Pastor Davies hadn't dragged me out of the saloon and told me I still had work to do. What work? I didn't know then. I know now. He looked toward Luke's room. God sent me that boy, broken and angry and scared just like me. We're supposed to save each other, I think. I just don't know how. Clara studied his profile in the firelight. The strong jaw, the tired eyes, the weight of grief and responsibility pressing down on his shoulders. You traded your ranch for a stranger, she said. That's not the action of a man who doesn't know how to save people. That was desperation, not heroism. Sometimes they're the same thing. Tom was quiet for a long moment. There's a room for you, he said finally. Through that door. It was going to be the nursery before. He stopped. It's small, but it's private. There's a lock on the door. You put a lock on it, this morning, after I decided to go to the auction. He met her eyes. I wanted you to feel safe. Whatever else happens, I wanted you to know you could lock that door and no one would bother you. Clara felt something shift in her chest, a wall crumbling slightly. Thank you, she said softly. Don't thank me yet. Tom's expression darkened. Blackwood won't let this go. What I did today, humiliating him in front of the whole town, he'll make me pay for that. He'll make us all pay. Then why did you do it? Because I saw you standing on that platform looking at him like he was dirt beneath your boots. A ghost of a smile crossed Tom's face. And I thought there's someone who won't break. There's someone who might be able to reach my nephew when I can't. You don't know anything about me. I know you didn't beg. I know you didn't cry. I know you told the richest man in the territory that he couldn't afford you. Tom shook his head. That's enough. Clara wanted to tell him he was wrong. That she had cried in the cage wagon in the dark where no one could see. That she had begged God for mercy and received only silence. That she was as broken as his nephew, just better at hiding it. But she said nothing. Some truths were too heavy to share with strangers. Get some sleep, Tom said. Tomorrow will be hard. They all are out here. He disappeared into his own room. Clara stood alone by the dying fire, listening to the wind moan against the cabin walls. She thought about Sarah, about her screams fading into silence. She thought about Blackwood, about his smile. She thought about the boy in the next room, broken in body and spirit, waiting to be abandoned again. And she thought about herself, 28 years old, owned by no one, belonging nowhere. What am I doing here? She didn't have an answer. She went to her room, small as Tom had said, but clean, and locked the door behind her. Sleep came eventually, but it brought no peace. Clara woke to screaming. She was on her feet before her eyes fully opened, heart-pounding hands reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. The screaming continued. High, terrified. Coming from Luke's room. She ran. Tom was already there, trying to hold the thrashing boy, trying to wake him from whatever nightmare had taken hold. Luke, wake up. You're safe. You're home. No, don't. Papa. Clara pushed past Tom and grabbed Luke's face in both hands. Luke. Her voice was sharp, commanding. Look at me right now. The boy's eyes flew open, wild, unseeing. You're dreaming, Clara said firmly. It's not real. Whatever you're seeing, it's not real. You're in your bed, in your uncle's cabin. You're safe. Luke stared at her. His breathing came in ragged gasps. His whole body trembled. Papa, he whispered. They shot him. They shot him, and he fell, and there was blood everywhere. And I couldn't. I know. Clara pulled him close, wrapping her arms around his shaking frame. I know, sweetheart. I know. He fought her for a moment, struggled against the embrace like a trapped animal. Then he broke. The sobs came from somewhere deep. Months of grief, months of terror, months of pretending to be strong when everything inside him was shattered. He buried his face in Clara's shoulder and wept. Tom stood frozen in the doorway. Clara looked at him over Luke's head and shook her own slightly. Not now. This moment isn't for you. Tom understood. He backed away, disappearing into the darkness of the hall. Clara held the boy and let him cry. She didn't speak, didn't offer empty comfort, just held him steady and solid, an anchor in the storm. Eventually the sobs subsided. Luke pulled back his face, swollen and red. I'm sorry, he mumbled. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. I'm not a baby. No, you're not. Clara brushed the hair from his forehead. You're a boy who watched his father die. That would break anyone. Luke's breath hitched. I hid, he whispered. Under the bed. They came into our room and I hid. And Papa told me to stay quiet no matter what. And then they... His voice cracked. I should have helped him. I should have done something. You survived. That's what your father wanted. But... Listen to me. Clara gripped his shoulders. Your father told you to stay hidden because he loved you. Because he knew he couldn't save himself, but he could save you. By staying quiet, by surviving, you honored his sacrifice. Do you understand? Luke shook his head. I understand that he's dead, and I'm not. I understand that I was a coward. You were 11 years old. What were you supposed to do, fight armed men with your bare hands? Something. Anything. You did something. You lived. Clara's voice was fierce. And now you have to keep living. Not just surviving living. That's how you honor him. By becoming the man he wanted you to be. Luke was quiet for a long moment. His eyes, red-rimmed and exhausted, searched her face. Do you really believe that? I do. How can you believe anything good after... He gestured vaguely at everything. The cabin. The territory. The auction that had brought her here. Clara thought about the question. Thought about all the reasons she shouldn't believe in anything anymore. Because giving up is easy, she said finally. And I've never been good at easy. Something flickered in Luke's eyes. Not hope, not yet, but something close to it. Something that might grow given time and care. I'm tired, he said. Then sleep. Will you stay? Clara hesitated. This wasn't her place. Wasn't her role. She was a stranger bought at auction, not a mother, not family. But the boy's eyes held hers, and in them she saw something she recognized. The desperate need to not be alone. I'll stay, she said. Until you fall asleep. She settled into the chair beside his bed. Luke watched her for a moment, then closed his eyes. Clara, yes. Thank you. For not treating me like I'm broken. You're not broken, Luke. You're healing. There's a difference. He didn't respond. Within minutes, his breathing deepened. His face relaxed. The tension that had held him rigid melted away. Clara sat in the darkness watching him sleep and wondered what she had gotten herself into. Dawn came too soon. Clara woke with a crick in her neck and the smell of coffee filling the cabin. She'd fallen asleep in the chair beside Luke's bed, her head tilted at an awkward angle. The boy was still sleeping. His face was peaceful now, the nightmares held at bay for the moment. She rose quietly and made her way to the main room. Tom stood at the stove, his back to her. He turned when he heard her footsteps. Coffee? Please. He poured her a cup. Their hands brushed as she took it, and Clara felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. She pushed it away. Too soon. Too complicated. Thank you, Tom said quietly. For last night. For Luke. He needed someone to listen. I've tried, 100 times. He won't talk to me. That's not your fault. You're his family. That makes it harder sometimes. Clara sipped her coffee. He's afraid of disappointing you. Afraid that if you see how broken he really is, you'll send him away. Tom's face crumpled. I would never. I know, but he doesn't. Not yet. Clara set down her cup. Give him time. Show him every day that you're not going anywhere. Eventually he'll believe it. How do you know all this? Clara thought about her father. About the years after her mother's death, when she'd been too afraid to cry because she thought it would make him sad. About the walls she'd built and the walls she was still building. Experience, she said simply. The sound of hoofbeats interrupted them. Tom's hand went to his hip to a gun that wasn't there. His eyes went hard. Stay inside. Who is it? I don't know. But out here, unexpected visitors are rarely good news. He grabbed a rifle from beside the door and stepped onto the porch. Clara watched through the window as a single rider approached. Not Blackwood. Too small, too slight. A young woman, maybe 17 or 18, with dark hair streaming behind her. Tom lowered the rifle slightly. Miss Blackwood. The girl pulled her horse to a stop. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. Mr. Harrington, please, I need to speak with the woman, the one from the auction. Why? Because my father's coming. Miriam Blackwood's voice shook. He's coming today with the sheriff and a court order. He says the auction was fraudulent. He says she belongs to him. Clara's blood turned to ice. That's impossible, Tom said. The sale was legal. Finch accepted my bid. My father owns the judge, Mr. Harrington. He owns everything. Miriam glanced over her shoulder, as if expecting pursuit. Please, I don't have much time. If he finds out I came here... Clara stepped onto the porch. What do you want from me? Miriam's eyes met hers. In them, Clara saw something unexpected. Shame. And determination. I want to help you, the girl said. I know what my father does to the women he buys. I know what happens in our house. I've watched it for years, and I've said nothing, and I can't... Her voice broke. I can't let it happen again. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. I'm a Blackwood. My family has done terrible things. Miriam straightened in her saddle. But I'm not my father. And I have information that can destroy him. Information that can set you free. Clara studied the girl. So young, so scared. But underneath the fear, something steel-hard. What kind of information? Records, documents, proof of every woman he's bought and what happened to them. Proof of his arrangement with Finch. Proof of bribes to the sheriff and the judge. Miriam's jaw tightened. Enough to send him to prison, or hang him. Where are these documents? In his office, hidden, but I know where. Tom shook his head. This is too convenient. Her father sends her here with some story about secret documents, gets us to trust her, and then... My father doesn't know I'm here. Miriam's voice was sharp. He would kill me if he did. You don't know him. You don't know what he's capable of. I know exactly what he's capable of. Tom's hand tightened on the rifle. I've seen what happens to people who cross him. Then you know I'm risking my life coming here. Miriam turned to Clara. Please, I can't undo what my father's done. But I can help stop him from doing it again. That has to count for something. Clara looked at the girl, at her trembling hands, at the bruise half hidden by her collar that suggested Ezra Blackwood's cruelty wasn't reserved for strangers. How long do we have? Clara asked. Before your father gets here. 2 hours, maybe less. Tom swore under his breath. That's not enough time. We can't get to town and back before... We don't need to go to town. Clara's mind was racing. We need to delay him, buy time to get those documents. How? I don't know yet. She turned to Miriam. Can you get back to your father's house without being seen? I think so. Then go. Get the documents. Hide them somewhere safe, somewhere he'll never look. When the time is right, we'll find a way to use them. Miriam hesitated. What about you? If my father takes you? He won't. Clara's voice was stronger than she felt. One way or another, he won't. The girl nodded once. Then she wheeled her horse and galloped away, disappearing into the morning mist. Tom turned to Clara. You're trusting the daughter of the man who wants to own you. I'm trusting a girl who's clearly been abused by her father and wants to stop him. Clara met his eyes. Sometimes desperate people are the most reliable allies. They have the most to gain. Or the most to lose. What if she betrays us? Then we're no worse off than we were before. Clara walked back into the cabin. Right now we need to focus on the next 2 hours. We need a plan. What kind of plan? Clara looked around the small cabin. At the rifle by the door. At the military commendations on the wall. At the photograph of the woman who had died too young. You were in the cavalry, she said. You know about strategy. About defense. I know about charging into battle and hoping for the best. Then it's time you learned something different. Clara grabbed her shawl. Blackwood is coming with a court order and the law on his side. We can't fight that head on. Then what do we do? Clara thought about Finch, about the contract she'd signed, about the legal system that treated women as property. We don't fight the law, she said slowly. We use it. There has to be something, some technicality, some loophole, something that makes Blackwood's claim invalid. I'm not a lawyer. Neither am I. But I know someone who might help. Clara moved toward the door. The pastor, Davies. You said he was the one who helped you after your wife died. He's a minister, not a lawyer. Ministers know things. They hear confessions. They see what happens behind closed doors. Clara grabbed the rifle from beside the door. And right now he's the only ally we have. You can't go to town. That's exactly what Blackwood wants. I'm not going to town. You are. Clara handed him the rifle. Find Pastor Davies. Tell him what's happening. Ask if he knows anything at all that might help. And leave you here alone with Luke if Blackwood comes. He won't hurt the boy. He has no quarrel with Luke. Clara's voice was steady. It's me he wants. And I won't be here when he arrives. Tom stared at her. What are you planning? Clara thought about the mountains. About the canyons and caves she'd seen from the wagon. About the 1,000 places a person could hide if they knew where to look. I'm going to disappear, she said, just for a few hours, long enough for you to find another way. Clara, listen to me. She gripped his arm. If Blackwood takes me today, it's over, everything. But if I can stay free long enough for Miriam to get those documents, long enough for you to find legal help. You could die out there. You don't know this land. I don't know a lot of things, but I know how to survive. Clara released his arm. Go, find the pastor. Find a way. Tom looked at her for a long moment. His jaw worked, struggling with words that wouldn't come. I'll find a way, he said finally. I promise. Don't promise, just do it. He nodded once. Then he was gone, the sound of hoofbeats fading into the distance. Clara stood alone in the cabin, the silence pressing down on her. You're leaving. She turned. Luke stood in the doorway of his room, leaning heavily on a crude crutch that Tom must have made for him. I'm not leaving. I'm hiding. There's a difference. Blackwood's coming for you. Yes. And you're running away. Clara crossed to him, knelt so they were eye to eye. I'm not running, I'm fighting. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to let your enemy find you. Make them work for it. Make them chase you. Make them angry. She touched his face. Do you understand? Luke's eyes searched hers. What do I do? Stay here. If Blackwood comes, tell him I left in the night. Tell him you don't know where I went. Tell him your uncle went to look for me. That's lying. Yes. Papa said lying was wrong. Clara's heart clenched. Your papa was right. But sometimes there are worse things than lying. Sometimes the truth gets people killed. She straightened. Will you do this for me? Luke was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. Be careful, he said. Please. I'll try. Clara grabbed a blanket, some dried meat, a canteen of water. Basic supplies. Enough to survive a few hours in the wilderness. At the door she paused. Luke, yeah. When I come back, and I will come back, we're going to have a real conversation. About your father. About what happened. About how we're going to help you heal. I don't want to talk about it. I know. We're going to do it anyway. She almost smiled. That's what family does. You're not my family. Not yet. She opened the door. But I could be. She stepped into the morning light and started walking. Behind her, the cabin grew smaller. The mountains rose ahead, vast and ancient and indifferent. Clara didn't look back. She had 2 hours. She intended to use every minute. Clara had been walking for nearly an hour when she heard the dogs. The sound froze her blood. Baying hounds, their voices carrying across the canyon like a death knell. Blackwood hadn't waited. He'd come early, and he'd come prepared. She broke into a run. Her legs burned. Her lungs screamed. The rough terrain tore at her dress, ripped at her stockings. She didn't care. She just ran. The baying grew louder. Clara scrambled up a rocky slope, her fingers scraping against stone. She reached a narrow ledge and pressed herself against the cliff face, fighting to control her ragged breathing. Think, think. Dogs tracked scent. She needed water, a stream, a river, anything to break her trail. She listened. Beneath the howling of the hounds, she caught at the faint rush of moving water somewhere below. Clara climbed down the other side of the ridge, half sliding, half falling. Her ankle twisted on a loose rock. Pain shot up her leg, but she kept moving. The stream appeared through the brush. Shallow, maybe knee-deep, cutting through the canyon floor like a silver ribbon. She splashed into the water without hesitation. The cold hit her like a fist. Her teeth chattered. Her muscles seized. But she forced herself forward, wading upstream, letting the current wash away her scent. Behind her, the dogs reached the ridge. Their baying turned confused, frustrated. Good. Let them search. Clara waited until her legs went numb. Then she pulled herself onto the opposite bank and kept walking, leaving wet footprints that would dry within minutes. She found a cluster of boulders and wedged herself into a gap between them. Small, hidden, a place where even dogs might miss her. She wrapped the blanket around her shaking body and waited. The minutes crawled by. The dogs came closer. Clara could hear men's voices now shouting, cursing, arguing about which direction to search. She went in the water, someone yelled. Which way? Split up, Harris, take your men upstream. I'll go down. Footsteps splashed through the creek. Clara pressed herself deeper into the rocks, making herself as small as possible. A dog passed within 10 feet of her hiding spot. She held her breath. The animal paused, sniffed the air. Clara's heart stopped. Then a whistle sounded from somewhere downstream. The dog's ears perked up, and it bounded away toward the sound. Clara didn't move, didn't breathe. The search continued for what felt like hours. Men passed back and forth, their voices fading and returning, their frustration growing with each empty sweep. Finally, a voice she recognized cut through the chaos. Enough! Ezra Blackwood. Mr. Blackwood, we can keep searching. She's gone to ground somewhere. We won't find her today. Blackwood's voice was cold with controlled rage. But she has to come back eventually. Harrington's ranch is the only shelter for miles. We'll wait. What about Harrington? What about him? He's got nothing. No money, no allies, no legal standing. The court order gives me rights to that woman. All we have to do is wait for her to crawl back. And if she doesn't, then we burn the ranch. Blackwood's voice carried clearly through the canyon. With or without the boy inside? Clara's blood turned to ice. Sir, the boy's just a child. The boy is leverage. Harrington cares about him. The woman cares about him. As long as we have access to that ranch, we have access to them. Blackwood paused. Pull back the men. Set a perimeter around the property. No one gets in or out without my knowing. Yes, sir. The sounds of retreat began. Boots on stone horses, whinnying dogs being leashed. Clara stayed hidden until silence fell over the canyon. Then she started shaking. Luke. They were going to use Luke as bait. An 11-year-old boy with a broken leg and a shattered heart trapped in a cabin surrounded by men who would burn it to the ground without hesitation. She had to get back. But how Blackwood had set a perimeter. His men would be watching every approach to the ranch. Clara forced herself to think clearly, to push past the fear and the cold and the exhaustion. Tom had gone to town, to find Pastor Davies, to find help. But what if he hadn't made it? What if Blackwood's men had intercepted him? What if Luke was alone? Clara pulled herself out of her hiding spot. Her ankle throbbed. Her clothes were still damp. Every muscle in her body screamed for rest. She ignored all of it. She started walking. Not back toward the ranch, that way was watched. Instead, she moved parallel to the canyon, searching for another route. The sun climbed higher. The day grew warm. Clara's damp clothes dried stiff against her skin. She walked for 2 hours before she found what she was looking for. A trail. Narrow and overgrown, clearly unused for years. It wound up the mountainside, disappearing into a dense thicket of pine. Clara followed it. The trail led to a ridge overlooking the valley. From here she could see the ranch below, tiny, vulnerable, surrounded by men on horseback who circled like vultures. And something else. A second group of riders approaching from the direction of town. 4, maybe 5 men, moving fast. Clara's heart lurched. Was it Tom? Or more of Blackwood's people? She watched as the groups converged. Voices rose. She couldn't make out words, but the tone was unmistakable. Confrontation. Then a single shot rang out. Clara was running before the echo faded. She half slid, half fell down the mountainside, heedless of the rocks tearing at her hands, the branches whipping her face. All she could think about was Luke. About the shot. About what might be happening at the ranch. She burst through this tree line just as chaos erupted in the yard. Tom was there alive, thank God, but pinned behind the water trough, his rifle clutched in his hands. 3 of Blackwood's men had taken cover near the barn. 2 more were advancing on the cabin. And on the porch, standing between the men and the door, was Luke. The boy had his uncle's spare pistol in his hands. His face was white as chalk, his broken leg trembling beneath him, but his grip on the weapon was steady. "Get back!" His voice cracked. "I'll shoot, I swear I'll shoot." "Luke, put the gun down," Tom shouted. "They're trying to get in. They're trying to take her. She's not here, son. I know she's not here, but they don't." Luke's eyes were wild. "I'm not letting them in. I'm not letting them take anything else from us." One of Blackwood's men laughed. "What are you gonna do, boy? Shoot all of us with one pistol?" "I only need to shoot one." Luke's voice steadied. "Question is which one of you wants to be first?" Clara burst into the yard. "Stop." Every head turned. "Miss Whitfield." Blackwood's foreman, a burly man with a scarred face, stepped forward. "You've saved us some trouble. Mr. Blackwood will be pleased. I'm not going anywhere with you." "I'm afraid you don't have a choice, ma'am." He pulled a folded paper from his coat. "Court order, signed by Judge Patterson. Says you're legally bound to Mr. Blackwood through contractual agreement with Mr. Cornelius Finch. That contract was voided when Mr. Harrington outbid Blackwood at the auction. Judge says different. Then the judge is wrong." The foreman's smile turned ugly. "Lady, I don't care if you come willing or unwilling. Either way, you're coming." He moved toward her. 2 men fell in behind him. Clara held her ground. "You touch me, and you'll regret it." "That's so. What are you gonna do?" "I won't do anything." Clara's voice was calm. Too calm. "But she will." The foreman's brow furrowed. "She who?" The sound of hoofbeats made him turn. A woman on horseback galloped into the yard. Behind her rode 4 men, rough-looking characters with badges pinned to their coats. Federal marshals. "That's far enough." The woman pulled her horse to a stop. "Everyone drop your weapons. Now!" The foreman's face went pale. "Miss Chen, what is this?" "This is Justice Mr. Harris." Ruth Chen. The Chinese woman, Miriam had told Clara about the one who ran the laundry, the one who knew the truth, dismounted smoothly. "These gentlemen are federal marshals out of Denver. They have warrants." "Warrants for what?" "Human trafficking, fraud, conspiracy to commit kidnapping." Ruth's eyes were hard as flint. "Among other things." "That's ridiculous. Mr. Blackwood is a respected... Mr. Blackwood is a criminal." Ruth pulled a sheaf of papers from her saddlebag. "And I have proof. 12 years of proof. Every woman he's bought, every payment he's made to Cornelius Finch, every bribe to Judge Patterson and Sheriff Cole." The foreman's face cycled through several shades of red. "Where did you get those? Does it matter?" Ruth handed the papers to the lead marshal. "What matters is that your employer is finished, and so are you if you don't drop that weapon right now." The foreman looked at his men, looked at the marshals, looked at Tom still behind the water trough with his rifle trained on them. He dropped his gun. "Wise choice." The marshal stepped forward. "You're all under arrest. Get on your knees, hands behind your heads." Clara watched as Blackwood's men were subdued and bound. The fight drained out of them. Quickly hired muscle was loyal only as long as the pay was good and the odds were favorable. Neither applied anymore. Tom emerged from behind the trough. He crossed to Clara and grabbed her shoulders. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine." "I couldn't find you. I came back and you were gone, and there were men everywhere, and I thought—" His voice broke. "I thought I'd lost you." "You didn't." Clara touched his face. "I'm right here." "Clara." She turned. Luke was limping toward her, the pistol still clutched in his hand. His face was streaked with tears and dirt, but his eyes blazed with fierce pride. "I didn't let them in," he said. "I told you I wouldn't, and I didn't." Clara knelt down and wrapped her arms around him. "You were so brave," she whispered. "So incredibly brave." "I was scared." "I know. That's what made it brave." Luke's arms tightened around her. For a long moment, neither of them moved. "Miss Whitfield," Ruth Chen's voice interrupted gently. "There's someone who wants to see you." Clara released Luke and turned. Miriam Blackwood stood at the edge of the yard. Her face was pale, her hands trembling, but she held herself with quiet dignity. "I got the documents," Miriam said. "All of them. Every record my father ever kept." "You did this?" Clara asked. "You brought the marshals." "Ruth did. I gave her what she needed." Miriam's voice wavered. "My father's going to kill me. When he finds out, your father's not going to do anything to anyone ever again." Ruth put a hand on the girl's shoulder. "The marshals are riding to his house now. By sundown he'll be in custody." Miriam closed her eyes. A single tear slid down her cheek. "I didn't want this," she whispered. "He's my father. I didn't want—" "I know." Clara stepped forward and took the girl's hands. "But sometimes loving someone means stopping them from hurting others. What you did took more courage than most people have in a lifetime." "I don't feel brave. I feel sick." "That's how bravery usually feels." Clara squeezed her hands. "It'll get easier. I promise." The sound of approaching horses made everyone tense. Hands went to weapons. Then Pastor Davies appeared, riding hard, his face flushed with exertion. Tom, I came as soon as I heard." He pulled his horse up short, taking in the scene. The bound men, the marshals, the women standing together in the yard. "What in God's name happened here?" "Justice," Ruth said simply. "Long overdue." The pastor dismounted slowly. His eyes found Clara. "Miss Whitfield, I came to tell Tom there's a precedent. An old territorial law. If a woman is sold under false pretenses, the contract is void. I was going to argue it before the judge, but it seems—" He looked around again. "It seems you found another way." "We had help." Clara nodded toward Ruth and Miriam. "A lot of help." "Then praise God for it." Pastor Davies clasped his hands. "Praise God for all of it." The afternoon passed in a blur of activity. The marshals took statements. Blackwood's men were loaded into a wagon for transport to the federal lockup in Denver. Ruth Chen organized, coordinated, managed clearly, the center of an underground network that had been working against Blackwood for years. Clara learned the truth in fragments. Ruth had escaped from one of Blackwood's contracts 8 years ago. She'd spent every day since building a case against him, carefully, quietly waiting for the right moment. Miriam's documents were that moment. "Why now?" Clara asked Ruth as they stood together watching the sun sink toward the mountains. "You've been gathering evidence for years. Why strike today?" "Because of you." Ruth's eyes were warm. "When Miriam came to me this morning, told me what her father was planning, I knew it was time. You'd stirred something up, made him reckless, made him show his hand. I didn't do anything. I just ran. You stood up to him at the auction. You looked him in the eye and told him he couldn't afford you. Word spread. Ruth smiled. Do you know how long it's been since anyone in this territory stood up to Ezra Blackwood? Years? Decades, maybe. You reminded people that it was possible. Clara didn't know what to say. Miriam was ready to help, Ruth continued. She's been ready for a long time. She just needed someone to show her the way. You did that. I didn't even know she existed until this morning. Sometimes that's how it works. We plant seeds without knowing. They grow in darkness out of sight. And then one day... Ruth gestured at the yard, at the marshals, at the evidence of victory all around them. They bloom. Clara felt something shift in her chest, a weight lifting. What happens now? She asked. To Blackwood, to Finch, to all of it. Trials, testimony, justice if we're lucky. Ruth's expression hardened. It won't be quick. These things never are. But Blackwood's finished. His money can't protect him anymore. Too many people know. Too many people are willing to talk. And the women, the ones he bought. We'll find them, all of them, the ones who are still alive anyway. Ruth's voice carried an old grief. Some we can help, some we can't. But we'll try. Clara thought about Sarah, about her screams fading into silence. There was a girl, she said, at the auction, young, frightened. They took her to Blackwood's house. We'll look for her. Ruth touched Clara's arm. I promise. The marshals rode out as the sun touched the horizon. They took Blackwood's men with them, leaving the ranch quiet for the first time since dawn. Tom found Clara standing on the porch watching the riders disappear into the fading light. Hell of a day, he said. That's one way to put it. He leaned against the railing beside her, close but not touching. I thought I lost you, he said quietly. When I came back and the men were everywhere and you were gone, I thought Blackwood had won. He almost did, but he didn't. Tom turned to face her. Because you're too stubborn to quit. I'm not stubborn. I'm practical. You're both. He almost smiled. That's what makes you dangerous. Clara looked at him, at this man who had traded everything for her, who had fought for her, who had trusted her when he had no reason to. Tom? Yeah. Why did you really do it at the auction? Why did you give up your ranch for a stranger? He was quiet for a long moment. Because I saw myself in you, he said finally. I saw someone who'd lost everything. Someone who was ready to give up. Someone who just needed one person in the whole world to believe they were worth saving. His voice roughened. Margaret believed that about me once. She saved me. I wanted to do the same for someone else. Clara felt tears prick at her eyes. You didn't just save me, she said. You gave me something I never had before. What's that? A home. The word caught in her throat. A real home. Not a place of feeling. A belonging. Tom reached out and took her hand. Clara Whitfield, he said slowly. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if Blackwood's people will come back. I don't know if the law will stick. I don't know if we'll make it through the winter. He squeezed her fingers. But I know this. Whatever comes, I want you here. Not because of a contract. Not because of obligation. Because when I look at you, I see home too. Clara didn't trust her voice. She just squeezed his hand back. They stood together in the gathering darkness, watching the first stars appear over the mountains. Behind them, the cabin door creaked open. Uncle Tom. Luke's voice was hesitant. Clara, can I come out? Clara turned and held out her hand. Come here, she said. Luke limped onto the porch. He looked at his uncle. At Clara. At their joined hands. "Are you staying?" he asked Clara. "For real?" "I'm staying." "For how long?" Clara looked at Tom. He nodded once. "For as long as you'll have me," she said. Luke's face crumpled, not with grief this time, with relief, with the release of tension he'd been carrying for months. He stumbled forward and threw his arms around Clara's waist. "Promise," he said, his voice muffled against her dress. "Promise you won't leave." Clara held him tight. "I promise." The three of them stood together on the porch as night fell over the Wyoming territory. A broken family mending, a damaged boy healing, a lost woman found. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was theirs. And that was enough. 3 weeks passed. The ranch began to heal slowly, like a wound closing from the inside out. Tom worked from dawn to dusk, mending fences, tending cattle, rebuilding what years of neglect and desperation had worn away. Clara kept the house, cooked the meals, and spent hours each day with Luke, reading, talking, simply being present. The boy was changing, not quickly, not dramatically, but Clara could see it in small moments. The way his eyes lingered on her face when she spoke, the way he reached for her hand during thunderstorms, the way he laughed, actually laughed at something silly she said one evening. He was learning to trust again, and so was she. Clara. Luke's voice pulled her from her thoughts. They were sitting on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you love Uncle Tom?" Clara's breath caught. "Why do you ask?" "Because he looks at you different. The way Papa used to look at Mama before she left." Luke's face was serious. "And you look at him different too." Clara didn't know how to answer. The truth was complicated. She cared for Tom deeply, genuinely. But love. That word carried weight she wasn't sure she was ready to bear. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Maybe. I think I could given time." "That's not a real answer." "It's the only one I have right now." Clara touched his cheek. "Love isn't something you decide overnight. It grows like a plant. You have to tend it, care for it, give it time." "Papa said he loved Mama the moment he saw her." "And how did that work out?" Luke's face fell. "She left." "I know. And I'm sorry." Clara pulled him close. "But maybe the kind of love that happens slowly is stronger, more real, less likely to break when things get hard. Is that what you want with Uncle Tom?" Clara looked toward the barn where Tom was finishing his evening chores. Even at this distance, she could feel his presence like a warmth against her skin. "I want to find out," she said softly. "I want the chance to find out." Luke nodded slowly. "I hope you stay," he said. "I hope you stay forever." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." The sound of approaching hoofbeats shattered the moment. Clara stood her hand, going to the rifle that Tom had taught her to keep nearby. 3 riders emerged from the gathering dusk, moving fast. "Luke, get inside." "But now." The boy obeyed, his face pale. Clara raised the rifle and waited. The riders pulled up short. One of them raised his hands. "Easy, ma'am. We're not here to cause trouble." Clara recognized him. Deputy Marshal Reeves, one of the men who had arrested Blackwood's people 3 weeks ago. She lowered the rifle slightly. "What do you want?" "We need to speak with you and Mr. Harrington. It's urgent." Tom emerged from the barn, his own rifle in hand. He crossed to Clara's side, his eyes hard. "What's this about, Marshal?" Reeves dismounted slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Ezra Blackwood escaped custody 2 days ago. We think he's headed this way." Clara's blood turned to ice. "Escaped? How?" "Money. Same way he solved every problem his whole life. Bribed a guard, got his hands on a weapon, killed 2 men on his way out." Reeves's jaw tightened. He's got nothing left to lose now. No family willing to help him. No allies. No future. The only thing he's got is revenge. And he's coming here. That's what we think. You humiliated him, ma'am. Made him look weak in front of the whole territory. Men like Blackwood don't forget that. Tom stepped forward. What are you doing about it? Everything we can. We've got men searching every road between here and Denver, but Blackwood knows this land. He's got hideouts we don't know about. If he wants to stay hidden, he will. So you're here to warn us. That's it. We're here to offer protection. Reeves gestured to his companions. We can leave 2 men here watch the ranch until we catch him. 2 men against Blackwood. That's not protection. That's a speed bump. It's better than nothing. Tom's hands clenched around his rifle. Get off my land. Mr. Harrington, I said get off my land. We don't need your protection. We can take care of ourselves. Reeves looked at Clara. She saw the conflict in his eyes, duty warring with frustration. Ma'am, please. This man is dangerous. He's already killed twice since his escape. He won't hesitate to kill again. I know what he is. Clara's voice was steady. I looked him in the eye while he was bidding for my body like I was livestock. I know exactly what kind of man Ezra Blackwood is. Then let us help you. Clara looked at Tom. His jaw was set, his eyes hard, pride and stubbornness warring with common sense. 2 men, she said to Reeves. But they stay in the barn, not the house, and they follow Mr. Harrington's orders. Clara, Tom started. We have a child to protect. Her voice was quiet but firm. Our pride isn't worth his life. Tom's face worked through several emotions. Finally, he gave a short nod. Fine. The barn. And they stay out of my way. Reeves let out a breath. Thank you. Both of you. He signaled to his men. Thompson Garcia, you're staying. Keep your eyes open and your mouths shut. The 2 deputies dismounted and headed toward the barn. Reeves lingered. One more thing, he said. We found Cornelius Finch. Clara's stomach clenched. Where? Dead. In an alley in Cheyenne. Someone cut his throat. Reeves's eyes were grim. We think it was Blackwood, tying up loose ends. Finch was his partner. Finch was a witness, a liability. Reeves swung back onto his horse. Whatever Blackwood's planning, he's not leaving anyone alive who can testify against him. That includes you, Miss Whitfield. Watch yourself. He rode away into the darkness, leaving Clara and Tom standing alone in the yard. This is my fault. Tom's voice was raw. I should have killed him when I had the chance. You're not a murderer, Tom. Maybe I should be. Maybe that's what it takes to survive out here. Clara touched his arm. We'll get through this. Together. He looked at her. In his eyes, she saw fear not for himself, but for her, for Luke, for everything he'd found, and everything he stood to lose. If anything happens to you, nothing's going to happen to me. You can't promise that. No. Clara's voice softened. But I can promise I won't go down without a fight, and neither will you. Tom pulled her close. She felt his heart pounding against her cheek, felt the strength and the fear and the desperate hope all tangled together. I should have told you sooner, he murmured against her hair. Told me what? That I love you. Clara's breath stopped. Tom, I know it's too soon. I know we barely know each other. But if Blackwood's coming, if this might be the last chance I get. His voice cracked. I love you, Clara Whitfield. I've loved you since the moment you told Blackwood he couldn't afford you. Clara pulled back to look at his face. The honesty there, the vulnerability. This strong, proud man laying his heart bare. I love you too, she whispered. The words surprised her. She hadn't planned to say them, hadn't even known they were true until they left her mouth. But they were true. Completely, terrifyingly true. Tom kissed her. Not gentle, not careful. A kiss that held everything: fear and hope and love and desperation all tangled together. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Clara smiled. "Well," she said, "that was worth waiting for." "Uncle Tom, Clara." They turned. Luke stood in the cabin doorway, his face pale. "Is the bad man coming?" Clara and Tom exchanged a look. Then Clara crossed to the boy and knelt before him. "Yes," she said. "He might be." "Are you going to run away? Hide like before?" "No." Clara took his hands. "This time we're going to stand and fight. All three of us." "But I can't fight. My leg—" "There are different kinds of fighting, Luke. Sometimes the bravest thing is just refusing to give up, refusing to let fear win." She squeezed his hands. "Can you do that?" Luke's chin trembled, but his eyes hardened. "I can try. That's my boy." The night passed slowly. Clara and Tom took turns keeping watch while the deputies patrolled the perimeter. Luke slept fitfully, crying out twice from nightmares that Clara soothed with soft words and gentle hands. Dawn came gray and cold. Clara was making breakfast when she heard the shot. She dropped the pan and grabbed her rifle. Tom was already at the door, his weapon raised. "Stay here," he said. "Like hell." "Clara." Another shot. Closer. "Luke, stay inside. Don't open this door for anyone except me or Clara." "But—" "Promise me." "I promise." Tom and Clara burst out of the cabin together. One of the deputies, Garcia, lay in the yard, blood pooling beneath him. The other was nowhere to be seen. "Over there!" Clara pointed toward the barn. A figure moved in the shadows. Tom fired. The figure ducked back. "Harrington!" The voice echoed across the yard. Ezra Blackwood's voice. "I know you're out there. I know she's with you. Show yourself, Blackwood." "Why?" "So you can shoot me like a dog." Blackwood laughed. It was an ugly sound. "I don't think so. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to send the woman out. She's going to walk over here nice and slow. And then maybe I won't burn that cabin with your nephew inside." Clara's blood ran cold. "He's bluffing," she whispered. "Is he?" Tom's jaw was tight. "He killed 2 marshals to escape. Killed Finch. What makes you think he won't kill a child?" "Because I won't let him." "Clara, don't." She stepped forward. "Blackwood." Silence. Then, "Miss Whitfield. So glad you could join us. You want me. Come and get me. But the boy stays out of it." "The boy is insurance. You understand insurance, don't you? It's what keeps people honest." Another ugly laugh. "Walk toward the barn. Slowly. Hands where I can see them." "Clara, no!" Tom grabbed her arm. "I won't let you. You can't stop me." She turned to face him. "If I don't go, he'll kill Luke. We both know it. He'll kill you anyway." "Maybe. But at least Luke will have a chance." She touched his face. "Get him out of here. Take him somewhere safe. Find Ruth Chen. She'll know what to do." "I'm not leaving you. You have to, for Luke's sake." Her voice broke. "Please, Tom. If you love me, do this one thing." Tom's face crumpled. She saw the war in his eyes, love against duty, hope against despair. "I'll come back for you," he said finally. "I swear to God, I'll come back." "I know you will." She kissed him, quick, hard, a promise for later. Then she walked toward the barn. "Clara, stop." She kept walking. "I said stop." She didn't stop. A shot cracked through the air. Dirt exploded at her feet. Clara froze. "That's close enough." Blackwood emerged from the barn, a pistol in each hand. His expensive clothes were torn and dirty. His face was gaunt, his eyes wild. He looked like a man who had lost everything except his hatred. "You ruined me," he said. "Everything I built, everything I was, gone, because of you." "You ruined yourself." "No. Blackwood's voice shook with rage. I was a respected man, a powerful man. And then you came along with your stubborn pride and your defiant eyes, and you made me look weak. You turned my own daughter against me. You brought the law down on my head. I didn't do any of those things. You did them to yourself. Shut up. He advanced on her, both pistols aimed at her chest. You don't get to talk anymore. You don't get to do anything anymore except die. Clara stood her ground. Then do it. Kill me. See if it changes anything. Blackwood's hands trembled. You think I won't? I think you're afraid. Clara's voice was steady. I think you've been afraid your whole life. Afraid of losing power. Afraid of looking weak. Afraid of anyone who might see through the mask you wear. She took a step closer. I'm not afraid of you, Ezra Blackwood. I never was. You should be. Why? What are you going to do? Shoot me, burn the ranch, kill everyone who ever crossed you? Clara shook her head. It won't help. It won't bring back your power. It won't make you respected. It'll just make you what you've always been underneath a small, pathetic man who can't stand the fact that a woman saw through him. Blackwood's face contorted. I'll kill you, he snarled. I'll kill you slow. No, you won't. The voice came from behind Clara. She turned. Miriam Blackwood stood at the edge of the yard, a rifle in her hands. Her face was pale but determined. Miriam? Blackwood's voice cracked. What are you doing here? Ending this. Miriam raised the rifle. Put down the guns, father. You wouldn't shoot your own father. I've done worse than that. I betrayed you. I gave Ruth Chen your records. I helped the marshals find your hideouts. Miriam's voice shook, but her hands were steady. I've already destroyed you. What's one more step? Miriam, please. I'm your father. I raised you. I protected you. You beat me. You locked me in my room when I disobeyed. You killed my mother's spirit before you killed her body. Tears streamed down Miriam's face. I loved you once. I wanted so badly for you to love me back. But you're not capable of love. You're only capable of possession. That's not true. Then prove it. Put down the guns. Turn yourself in. Show me that you're more than what you've become. Blackwood stood frozen. Clara could see the conflict raging behind his eyes. The man he might have been warring with the monster he'd become. For a moment, she thought he might do it. Might choose redemption. Then his face hardened. I'd rather die. He swung both pistols toward Miriam. Clara didn't think. She moved. Her body collided with Blackwood's just as the guns went off. The shots went wild, tearing into the sky. They hit the ground hard, Clara on top, fighting for control of the weapons. Blackwood was stronger. He threw her off, scrambling to his feet, bringing one pistol up. Another shot rang out. Blackwood staggered. His hand went to his chest. Blood seeped between his fingers. He looked at Miriam, at the smoking rifle in her hands, at the daughter he had created and destroyed. You... His voice was a whisper. I'm sorry, Father. Miriam's tears fell freely now. I'm so sorry. Blackwood collapsed. His body hit the ground and didn't move. Clara pushed herself up, gasping. Tom was running toward her, Luke hobbling behind him as fast as his broken leg would allow. Clara, Clara! I'm okay. She let him pull her to her feet. I'm okay. Is he dead? Luke's voice was small. Clara looked at Blackwood's body, at the pool of blood spreading beneath him, at the empty eyes staring at nothing. Yes, she said. He's dead. Miriam dropped the rifle. Her legs gave out and she crumpled to the ground, sobbing. Clara went to her, knelt beside her, wrapped her arms around the girl who had just killed her own father to save a stranger. It's over, Clara whispered. It's finally over. I killed him. I killed my own father. You saved me. You saved all of us. Clara held her tighter. What you did was brave. The bravest thing I've ever seen. I don't feel brave. I feel broken. I know. Clara's voice was gentle. But broken things can heal. I promise you they can heal. Tom and Luke joined them. The four of them knelt together in the dirt, a family forged by fire, bound by choice rather than blood. The sun broke through the clouds, spilling golden light across the yard. And for the first time in longer than Clara could remember, she felt something she'd thought she'd lost forever. Peace. The weeks after Blackwood's death passed like a fever dream. Marshals came and went. Questions were asked and answered. Statements were taken, documented, filed away. Clara told her story so many times she began to feel like she was reciting lines from a play, words worn smooth by repetition, emptied of their original meaning. Through it all, Tom stayed by her side. And Luke. And Miriam, who had nowhere else to go, and no one else who would have her. The territory cleared Clara of any wrongdoing. Self-defense, they called it. Justifiable homicide. Cold words for a warm-blooded act. Miriam wasn't so lucky. The law saw a daughter who had killed her father. The circumstances didn't matter. The abuse didn't matter. The years of terror and the lives she'd saved didn't matter. All that mattered was the blood on her hands. They want to try her, Tom said one evening, his voice heavy with disgust. The prosecutor in Cheyenne says he can't let patricide go unpunished no matter the reason. Clara's hands stilled on the dish she was washing. That's absurd. She saved my life. She saved all of us. I know, but the law doesn't see it that way. Then the law is wrong. Maybe, but it's still the law. Clara dried her hands and turned to face him. What can we do? I don't know. Ruth's working on something, calling in favors, contacting people in Denver, but it's not looking good. Clara thought about Miriam, about the girl who had defied everything she'd been raised to believe, who had chosen strangers over blood, who had pulled a trigger knowing it would destroy her. We're not giving up on her, Clara said firmly. She didn't give up on us. I never said we should. Then what are we doing? Tom was quiet for a long moment. Pastor Davies mentioned something, an old law territorial statute from before the war. It says a woman can't be tried for crimes committed in defense of her household. Miriam isn't part of our household. Not yet. Tom met her eyes. But she could be. Clara's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying we could adopt her, legally, make her part of our family. Tom's voice was rough. It's not a guarantee. The prosecutor might fight it, but it would give us grounds to argue that she was defending her home, her family. Tom, that's crazy, I know, but so is everything else that's happened since you stepped off that auction platform. He took her hands. Clara, I've watched that girl these past weeks. She's lost, broken, just like Luke was, just like we all were. And I keep thinking maybe that's why she was sent to us. Maybe that's what we're supposed to do. Give her a home. Give her a chance. Clara looked toward the small room where Miriam slept. The girl rarely came out, rarely spoke. She ate when food was put in front of her and stared at walls the rest of the time, lost in guilt and grief. She killed her father, Clara said quietly. That's not something you just get over. No, it's not. But it's something you can learn to live with, given time, given love. Tom squeezed her hands. We know something about that, don't we? Clara thought about her own father, about the debts that had consumed him, about the day she'd found him slumped over his sewing machine, heart-stopped work unfinished. She'd blamed herself for years, told herself she should have seen the signs, should have done more, should have saved him. She still blamed herself sometimes. But the blame had grown quieter, softer, easier to carry. Yes, she said, we do. The next morning, Clara knocked on Miriam's door. Come in. The girl sat on the edge of the bed, her hands folded in her lap. She looked like a ghost, pale, thin, fading. "Can I sit with you?" Clara asked. Miriam nodded. Clara settled beside her. For a long moment, neither spoke. "I keep seeing it," Miriam said finally. "Every time I close my eyes, the way he looked at me, the surprise, like he couldn't believe I would actually—" She swallowed hard. "Like he thought I was still the little girl who worshipped him. Maybe part of you was. Maybe." Miriam's voice cracked. "I loved him, Clara, despite everything, despite what he did to those women, despite what he did to me. I loved him because he was my father, and daughters are supposed to love their fathers. There's nothing wrong with that. Isn't there? He was a monster. I knew he was a monster, and I still loved him." Tears slid down Miriam's cheeks. "What does that make me?" Clara reached over and took the girl's hand. "It makes you human," she said. "Love doesn't follow logic. It doesn't care about right and wrong. It just is." She squeezed gently. "Your father did terrible things. That's true. But he was also the man who held you when you were scared, who taught you to ride a horse, who sang you to sleep when you had nightmares. He stopped doing those things years ago. I know. But you remember them. You carry them with you." Clara turned to face her. "Miriam, you can love someone and still recognize that they're dangerous. You can grieve someone and still acknowledge the harm they caused. Those things aren't contradictions. They're just life. Messy, complicated, impossible life." Miriam was quiet for a long moment. "They're going to put me on trial," she said. "The marshal told me yesterday. The prosecutor in Cheyenne wants to make an example. I know. I'll probably hang." "No." Clara's voice was fierce. "You won't. We won't let that happen. How can you stop it?" Clara took a deep breath. "Tom and I have been talking. We want to adopt you. Legally. Make you part of our family." Miriam's head snapped up. "What?" "There's an old law it might protect you if you're officially part of our household. It's not certain, but it's something. You would do that for me. We would do that because it's right. Because you deserve a family, a real family." Clara touched Miriam's face. "Because you're already one of us, whether you know it or not." Miriam's composure shattered. She collapsed against Clara, sobbing great heaving sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than grief. Clara held her, rocked her, let her cry. "It's okay," she murmured. "It's going to be okay. I don't deserve this." "Yes, you do. You deserve this, and so much more." Clara stroked her hair. "You saved my life, Miriam. You saved Luke's life. You stopped a monster when no one else could. That took more courage than most people have in a lifetime. I don't feel courageous. I feel empty. I know. But the emptiness won't last forever, I promise." Miriam pulled back, her face swollen and red. "Do you really believe that?" "I do. Because I've been empty too. And then I found Tom. Found Luke. Found this place." Clara smiled through her own tears. "Found you. The emptiness filled up when I wasn't looking. It will for you too." Miriam stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." The adoption papers were filed 3 days later. Pastor Davies performed a small ceremony, making it official in the eyes of God, if not yet in the eyes of the law. Tom stood with his hand on Miriam's shoulder. Clara held Luke close. Ruth Chen watched from the doorway, her face unreadable. "We are gathered here," Pastor Davies said, "to witness the formation of a new family, not by blood, but by choice, not by tradition, but by love." Miriam stood rigid, her face pale but determined. "Miriam Blackwood," the pastor continued, "do you accept Thomas and Clara Harrington as your guardians? Do you promise to honor their household respect, their guidance, and embrace your new brothers and sisters as your own?" "I do." Her voice was barely audible. "Thomas and Clara Harrington, Do you accept Miriam as your daughter? Do you promise to protect her, guide her, and love her as your own flesh and blood?" "We do," they said together. "Then by the power vested in me by God and this community, I declare this adoption complete. Miriam, you are now and forever a member of the Harrington family." Pastor Davies smiled. "May God bless this union and all who witness it." Luke was the first to move. He limped forward. His leg had healed enough that he no longer needed the splint, though he still favored it, and wrapped his arms around Miriam's waist. "I always wanted a sister," he said. Miriam looked down at him. Something cracked in her expression, a wall crumbling, a door opening. "I always wanted a brother," she whispered. Clara watched them embrace and felt her heart expand in ways she hadn't known were possible. This was her family now. Not the family she'd been born into. Not the family she'd expected. But the family she'd found. The family she'd chosen. The family that had chosen her. "Well," Ruth Chen said from the doorway, "I hate to interrupt this touching moment, but we have work to do." Clara turned. "What kind of work?" Ruth held up a telegram. The prosecutor dropped the charges. All of them. Miriam gasped. "How? Why?" "Because I called in every favor I was owed." Ruth's smile was thin but genuine. "And because certain powerful people in Denver decided they didn't want a public trial that would expose all of Blackwood's crimes. Too many of them were involved. Too many of them had dirty hands." She shrugged. "Politics. Sometimes it works in our favor." Tom stepped forward. "So it's over. Really over. Really over. Miriam is free. Clara is free. You're all free to live your lives without looking over your shoulders." Ruth's expression softened. "You earned this. All of you." Clara felt something she'd been carrying for months finally release. A tension in her shoulders. A tightness in her chest. A fear she'd grown so accustomed to, she'd forgotten it was there. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." "Don't thank me. Thank yourselves. I've been fighting Blackwood for 8 years. You brought him down in 3 weeks." Ruth shook her head. "I don't know what it is about you, Clara Whitfield, but you have a gift for making things happen." "Harrington," Clara said. "What?" "It's Clara Harrington now, or it will be as soon as Tom gets around to asking properly." Tom's face went red. I had a whole plan." "Plans are overrated." Clara turned to face him. "Ask me." "Here. Now. In front of everyone." "Yes." Tom looked around at the assembled faces. At Luke, grinning. At Miriam, crying again but smiling this time. At Ruth with her knowing eyes. At Pastor Davies, who was already reaching for his Bible. He took a deep breath. "Clara Whitfield," he said, "I had this whole speech prepared, about how you saved my life, about how you saved Luke, about how I never thought I could love anyone again after Margaret, but then you came along and proved me wrong. That's a good speech. I'm not done." He took her hands. "I was going to say all of that, and then I was going to get down on one knee and ask you to marry me, but now you've gone and ruined the surprise, so I'm just going to say this." He paused. "I love you. I love everything about you. Your stubbornness, your courage, the way you don't take anything from anyone, the way you've made this house a home again." His voice cracked. "Marry me, Clara. Please. Let me spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of you." Clara's vision blurred with tears. "Yes," she said. "Yes. Yes, you impossible man. Yes, I'll marry you." Tom actually whooped like a boy half his age, and swept her into his arms. He spun her around while Luke cheered and Miriam laughed, and Ruth Chen rolled her eyes, but smiled anyway. "Finally," Pastor Davies said, "I was wondering when you two would get around to it." The wedding was held 1 week later. Nothing fancy. Just family and friends gathered in the small church at the edge of town. Ruth Chen stood as Clara's witness. Luke stood as Tom's. Miriam sat in the front row, holding a bouquet of wildflowers she'd picked that morning. Clara wore a simple dress, white cotton with lace at the collar. Not expensive, not elegant, but clean and honest and hers. Tom wore his best suit, the same one he'd worn to the auction. The same one he'd worn when he'd traded everything he owned for a woman he'd never met. "Dearly beloved," Pastor Davies began, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of Thomas Jacob Harrington and Clara Marie Whitfield in holy matrimony." Clara looked at Tom, at the man who had seen her at her lowest and lifted her up, who had given her a home when she had none, who had loved her when she'd forgotten how to love herself. "Do you, Thomas, take Clara to be your lawfully wedded wife? To have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health until death do you part?" "I do." "And do you, Clara, take Thomas to be your lawfully wedded husband? To have and to hold from this day forward for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" Clara thought about the journey that had brought her here. The cage wagon, the auction platform, the moment she'd decided to give up, and the moment, the split second, when a stranger's voice had cut through her despair and offered her something she'd thought she'd lost forever: hope. "I do," she said. "Then by the power vested in me by God and the territory of Wyoming, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Pastor Davies beamed. "Tom, you may kiss your bride." Tom pulled her close and kissed her. Not gentle, not careful. A kiss that promised everything: joy and sorrow, triumph and struggle, a lifetime of moments both ordinary and extraordinary. When they finally broke apart, Clara was crying. "Happy tears," she said, laughing. "Only happy tears." "Better be," Tom said. "I've got a reputation to maintain." Luke ran up and threw his arms around both of them. "Does this mean Clara's really my mother now?" he asked. Clara knelt down to his level. "What do you want me to be?" Luke thought about it. "I want you to be my mom," he said. "My real mom. Not because of papers or laws or anything like that. Just because you love me, and I love you." Clara's heart cracked wide open. "Then that's what I'll be," she said. "For as long as you want me. Forever. Forever." Miriam joined them, her eyes wet. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." Clara pulled her into the embrace. "We're family now," she said. "That's what families do." The four of them stood together in the little church, holding each other, letting the moment settle into their bones. Outside, the Wyoming sun climbed higher into a cloudless sky. The mountains stood eternal on the horizon. The wind carried the smell of sage and wildflowers. Life continued. The months that followed were hard. The ranch didn't heal itself, and neither did the people on it. There were setbacks, struggles, days when it seemed like everything might fall apart. But there were also victories. Small ones at first. Luke walking without a limp for the first time. Miriam laughing at something silly Clara said. Tom coming in from the fields with a smile on his face instead of exhaustion in his eyes. And then bigger ones. The first profitable cattle sale. The expansion of the cabin to include proper bedrooms for all the children. The arrival of Sarah, the girl from the auction found alive in one of Blackwood's properties, traumatized but surviving. Ruth Chen helped with that. She'd made good on her promise to find the women Blackwood had bought. Some were beyond saving. Some didn't want to be saved. But others, like Sarah, just needed a place to heal. The Harrington Ranch became that place, not officially, not with signs or announcements, just quietly, gradually, as word spread through the territory that there was a family in Wyoming who took in broken people and helped them find their feet again. 5 years later, Clara stood on the porch of the expanded ranch house and watched the sun rise over the mountains. The place had changed, grown. A bunkhouse for the hands. A schoolroom where Miriam taught reading and writing to any child who wanted to learn. a small chapel where Pastor Davies held services every Sunday. But some things remained the same. The sound of horses in the corral, the smell of coffee brewing, the feel of Wyoming wind on her face. "Penny for your thoughts." She turned. Tom stood in the doorway, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. His hair was more gray now, his face more lined, but his eyes were the same, warm and steady and full of love. "I was thinking about that day," Clara said. "The auction. How I was ready to give up." And now, Clara looked out at the ranch, at the children playing in the yard, Luke now 16 and nearly as tall as his uncle, Miriam teaching a group of younger ones to read, Sarah finally smiling again after years of healing. And the others, the lost ones who had found their way here, the broken ones who had been put back together, the hopeless ones who had learned to hope again. "Now I can't imagine giving up on anything," she said. "Not ever." Tom handed her a cup of coffee and wrapped his arm around her waist. "I love you, Clara Harrington." "I love you too, Tom." They stood together, watching the sun climb higher. Behind them, the sounds of their family waking up filled the air, voices and laughter, and the ordinary chaos of ordinary lives. Clara thought about the woman she'd been 5 years ago, desperate, alone, standing on an auction platform with nothing left to lose. That woman was gone now, transformed, reborn. In her place stood someone stronger, someone braver, someone who had learned that the worst moments of life could become the doorway to the best. "Mama!" A small voice called from inside. "Mama, come quick. The baby kicked." Clara smiled. Her hand went to her swollen belly, another miracle unexpected but welcome. "Coming, sweetheart?" She turned to go inside, then paused. "Tom? Yeah. Thank you. For everything. For seeing me when I was invisible. For choosing me when I thought I was worthless. For giving me a family when I thought I'd never have one." Tom pulled her close. "You did the same for me," he said. "We saved each other, Clara. That's what love is." Clara kissed him soft and sweet and full of promise. Then she went inside to join her family. The sun rose higher over the Wyoming mountains. The wind carried the sounds of laughter across the valley. And in a small ranch house on the edge of the frontier, a woman who had once been sold for $40 sat surrounded by the people who loved her. She had come west looking for survival. She had found something infinitely more precious. She had found home. And home, Clara Harrington knew with absolute certainty, was exactly where she belonged.